Picture this. A single spotlight cuts through the darkness of a Hollywood stage. A woman steps forward in a pink satin gown, her hair a cloud of platinum blonde. Diamonds drip from her ears. They blaze at her throat. She opens her mouth, and the entire world stops breathing. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. That moment, 1953, a film called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes became one of the most replicated images in cinema history. Madonna recreated it. Bianca referenced it. Fashion houses have built entire collections around it. But here is the secret nobody tells you. Every single diamond on Marilyn Monroe's body that night was completely fake. Rhinestones, paste, costume jewelry worth a few dollars at most, and yet she made the world believe they were real. She made the world forget entirely that she had grown up with absolutely nothing. This is the true story of Marilyn Monroe and her jewels, and it is far more interesting than the version you already know. Before she was Marilyn Monroe, she was Norma Jeane Mortensen, born June 1, 1926 in Los Angeles, to a mother who spent most of her life in psychiatric institutions. There was no glamour in her beginning, no jewelry, no spotlight. She was placed in an orphanage at 9 years old. She moved between 11 different foster families. She married at 16 simply to avoid returning to the orphanage. She worked in a munitions factory during World War II. A photographer noticed her on that factory floor. Within 3 years, she was on dozens of magazine covers. Within a decade, she was the most photographed woman on the planet. But the transformation from Norma Jeane to Marilyn was deliberate and exhausting. She bleached her hair. She trained her voice. She studied every successful actress in Hollywood and built a persona from pieces of all of them. And she learned very early that the right accessories could change everything. That a woman who walked into a room wearing the right jewelry walked in as someone entirely different. Marilyn Monroe never forgot where she came from. This explains everything about her relationship with jewelry. As a child, she had watched wealthy women in films, watched how pearls and diamonds transformed the way other people treated them, watched how a single beautiful object worn with confidence could communicate power. She filed all of this away. When she began modeling in the mid-1940s, her jewelry was entirely costume-cheap rhinestone earrings, simple bracelets, department store pieces worth almost nothing. What was remarkable was what she did with them. She wore rhinestones as though they were chandelier diamonds from Cartier. She wore plastic pearls as though they were the Mikimoto collection. Dots she understood with a precision that was almost clinical, that glamour is a performance. And she was already one of the greatest performers alive. She signed her first studio contract with Fox in 1946 for $75 a week. She told a friend that the first thing she would do when she became a real star was own a real diamond. Not because she needed it, because she had spent her entire life being told she deserved nothing, and a diamond to her was proof that the story had changed. By 1953, Marilyn was the biggest female star in Hollywood, and she was still mostly wearing fake diamonds by choice. While Elizabeth Taylor was building one of the greatest private jewelry collections in history, Marilyn took a completely different approach. She believed that if something looked magnificent, it was magnificent. She believed the woman wearing the jewelry mattered infinitely more than the jewelry itself, but real pieces existed too. And their stories are extraordinary. The most significant diamond that ever touched her skin was the Moon of Baroda, a 24.04 carat fancy yellow pear-shaped diamond from the ancient Golconda mines of India, the same legendary source that produced the Hope Diamond and the Koh-i-Noor. It had passed through the hands of Indian Maharajas and European royalty. Some said it carried a curse that in 1953 a jeweler loaned it to Marilyn for promotional appearances. She wore it on a plain leather cord, no elaborate setting, nothing competing with it, just the stone alone, blazing at her collarbone, a characteristically brilliant choice. She said simply that it was gorgeous, then handed it back when the tour ended. In 2018, it sold at Christie's for approximately $1.5 million. Her real personal collection came from her marriages. Joe DiMaggio baseball legend, her second husband gave her 2 pieces she kept for the rest of her life. The first was a platinum eternity wedding band set with 35 baguette-cut diamonds. Elegant, not ostentatious. Marilyn kept it long after their 9-month marriage ended, because what it represented never entirely left her. After her death, it sold at auction for $772,000, missing 1 diamond. The second was a Mikimoto pearl necklace purchased during their Japan honeymoon in 1954. 16 inches, 44 cultured pearls, diamond clasp. For a woman who had grown up unable to afford a single real pearl, wearing Mikimoto was not just beautiful. It was proof of arrival. Marilyn Monroe is largely responsible for making costume jewelry socially acceptable. Before her, wearing obviously fake jewelry in public was considered slightly embarrassing. After Marilyn wore rhinestones with the confidence of a queen, everything changed. Jewelry historians credit her with democratizing glamour. Entirely rhinestone earrings she wore to a premiere in 1955 sold at auction for $185,000. The earrings themselves cost perhaps $2 when she bought them. What she gave them by wearing them, by existing in them, was worth considerably more. Off camera, people who knew her described her as surprisingly understated. She wore simple clothes at home. She read constantly. The full performance of glamour was something she switched on deliberately, not something she carried around exhaustingly every waking moment. She also asked questions about the history of stones loaned to her for an afternoon, where they came from, who had owned them, what their stories were. This was not the behavior of a woman who cared only about sparkle. She was drawn to the idea that an object could carry centuries of history inside its structure and still be beautiful. Marilyn Monroe died on August 4, 1962. She was 36 years old. Her estate was surprisingly modest for the world's biggest star. She had been consistently underpaid by studios that made fortunes from her image. She had been generous, often to her own detriment, paying for others' medical care, supporting family members, giving quietly and regularly. The jewelry she left behind entered auction rooms over the following decades and produced results that stunned even experienced collectors. The Eternity Band sold for nearly $800,000, the Moon of Baroda for $1.5 million, rhinestone earrings for $185,000, a lipstick-marked glass for tens of thousands. She gave cheap rhinestones the gravity of diamonds. She wore real diamonds as though they were simply another beautiful thing in a beautiful world. And she once said, recorded in interviews from the 1950s, that she liked jewelry because it lasted. Men left. Fame was unreliable. But a diamond, even a rhinestone kept carefully in a box, stayed. You could hold it in a dark moment and remember that something bright existed. From the girl who grew up in an orphanage looking through a fence at a film studio, that is not a shallow thought. That is the philosophy of a woman who understood, better than almost anyone, the difference between what things cost and what things are worth. She was the girl from nowhere who made the whole world look at her, and she was right to make them look. Follow for more true stories from the hidden lives of the women who defined Hollywood forever.